just like any other industry, architecture is full of buzzwords, and it's actually a tough one for us to step back from something and be able to identify and understand that we're speaking in colloquialisms or buzzwords because we live with this stuff day in and day out, but we don't realize that we're obscuring the issues when we talk to people. So on the most basic level, in terms of the actual design process and the design and drawing process, there's kind of, well, 2 or 3 steps, 3 or 4 steps, however you want to look at in that process. And they starts out with preliminary design, then it goes on to schematic design, then it goes on to construction documents, and then finally you're into construction administration. Now, at this point, your eyes are probably glazing over, because I've said the same thing 4 times, and it seems like. But in truth, from our point of view as architects, those are distinctly different. And so let me try to take a shot at the process. So as an example, preliminary design is the process where you actually are sitting down with the client, you, the veterinarian, for the first time to try to establish what the goals are and the general parameters of the project. How big is it going to be? What's your budget? What are the general listing of rooms? The general parameters of the project, okay? And this comes before design. We're not drawing at this point in time, we're making lists. And so the goal here is to try to establish what you are going to design before we start picking up the pencil, because if I, as an architect, start drawing something and I don't have a list to work off of, all I'm really doing is spending your money, which I don't mind doing, but it's not doing you much good. So the first step is a preliminary design, and that can take anywhere from 3 minutes to 3 hours to 3 weeks, but typically it's kind of a few days to a couple weeks to do that, and depending on how fast you and your architect can step through that. Now, as a veterinary design expert, we like to think that we have the ability to zero in on the preliminary design faster than, say, a local architect, because we have so much knowledge. We're such incredibly intelligent people. And we also have a base of experience. So we have the ability to bring that process quicker to fruition. But that's not to say it can't be done. So you need to look at that step. But that's preliminary design. Now, we move on to schematics. And schematics sounds an awful lot like preliminary design, because they really are rather esoteric. But schematic design is the process of actually taking the preliminary design list and turning it into a quick floor plan. Now, sometimes we call them adjacency matrices, that's a nice word, I like that. I'm not sure what it really means besides what, but that's an idea. Or bubble diagrams. That's a famous word that we use, is bubble diagrams, and that harks back to design school and drawing bubbles on walls and things like this. But the process here is to come up with a basic floor plan showing hallways, rooms, doors, windows, cabinets, cages. In the veterinary world, we're dealing with a lot of equipment, so you're talking about how big is an X-ray room, and can you get your X-ray equipment in there, or if you're doing something as odd as an MRI or this kind of thing, designing and laying out that particular room. But this is pretty much a simple floor plan, and most likely a first attempt at a exterior appearance of the building. Okay, and in terms of the total workload, in terms of the total design process, that might be about 10% of the work. Okay, so and if you back up to the preliminary design was probably worth 2% or 5% of the work. So you can see we have about 90% more to go. So we just barely scratched the surface. So the next step can be divided up into another esoteric word, which we call design development. And that is developing the design, a fancy word for it. But it really is a portion of the construction documents, which is a fancy word for working drawings, which is a fancy word for the blueprints that you're going to work off of. Okay, so you can see we're getting mired in jargon, but the process here is that we're now in the working drawings. We are now in the process of trying to lay out how you are actually going to build the project. Okay, What are the dimensions, what are the sizes, what are the structural members that are going into this thing. So that's the working drawings. And the working drawings have two goals. One is to actually lay out, well, it's three goals. To lay out how things will be built. They are also going to become the contract documents. They are going to become the documents upon which the contractor bids. This will be a legal document that the architect has created. They are committing to the contractor that he needs 7 rooms that are 8 by 10 and a shingle roof and a Pella window and a front door that looks like this. And these are contracts that you have with the contractor. And then lastly, the construction documents, the working drawings, the blue line, the blueprints, are going to be what you're submitting to the building department. So they're going to become a application process. So, and that is the culmination of those drawings is going to be the total design process. So you can see all this stuff runs together. And there's not distinct separation between the pieces, but in truth you can and should be able to stop the process anywhere along the length of it. And more importantly, you should be able to stop the presses as an owner and say to the architect, where are we? And do we have accountability? Do we know where we're going with the budget? Are we all going to the same spot before you continue on? You don't want to be in a position where you're going to start your architect from preliminary design and just tell him, go for it, and we'll check with you 3 months from now. The architect has a responsibility to keep you in the loop and keep you dialed into this thing. And as you go through the process with the architect, you are basically buying him by the hour. And so he's producing something, you should be checking it and giving your feedback to him, and he's going to be incorporating it into the drawings and continuing on. So there's a feedback loop going on. So as these pieces bleed together, there's still accountability in the process.